Okay, everybody, welcome back to the #1 TV program in the history of the universe. I am Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, I am going to be reviewing Brandon Sanderson's debut novel, Elantris. Came out in 2005. Let's talk about the cover first, because I love graphic design and cover illustration, and I think this has got a magnificent cover on it. If I can get the glare from my plastic slipcover to... Okay, so this has got a great illustration by, let's see, is it Stephen Martineri? Stephen Martineri, it's just great looking. I mean, it's got spectacular cover. Really one of the best, I think. One of my favorites, anyway. I just think it's dope. Now, let's talk about the beginnings and origins of this novel a little bit. Most of you out there that are watching this are probably Brandon Sanderson fans. You probably know his story, his life story, how many novels he wrote before he ever got published, and this ended up becoming his first published one. I met Brandon Sanderson before he was ever published. We both live in Utah. We both attended the same science fiction conventions. There was one back in the day called Conduit. It was the main, before FanX or Salt Lake Comic Con, the main science fiction convention at the time was called Conduit. I met him there in a Dave Farland panel where Dave Farland was talking about how to get published. I remember he turned to Brandon Sanderson and asked Brandon Sanderson, hey, how has your journey to get published been coming along? And Brandon Sanderson said, well, I actually just barely signed a deal with Tor for my first novel, which was going to be this. And sure enough, a couple of years later, this came out. So I was actually there from the beginning. Now, here's the thing. So I waited 2 years. I'm like, oh, who's this guy? Who was this guy in the panel that Dave pointed out in the crowd and to say, so how is your journey coming on? And then, so he stands up and he's like, yeah, I just got a book deal. I'm like, well, who's this guy and what's this book going to be about? So I remembered it. I knew the name Brandon Sanderson because I'd kind of run into him here and there at different conventions, and I knew his face and he was familiar to me. And I was like, well, I'm going to be excited to see what this is. And then when it came out, I was like, damn, that's dope. So I hurried and bought a copy and I read it. And I was like, okay. So I haven't read it since. Now, I always talk about maps because there is a good map in here. I think, oh, and also, my boy signed it for me. I get all my books signed. I show them off. There's a great map in here of, it's a simple map. I don't know if it was done by Isaac Stewart, who does most of the Brandon Sanderson maps, but it's a good map. So I remember reading this back in the day. I remember thinking, oh, that was pretty ambitious. Oh my God, for a first novel, this guy had some big ideas. Now, the ideas were sort of contained, these big ideas were really contained into sort of just narrowly focused into one city of Elantris. So it was kind of like massive ideas shrunk down and played out in this one sort of location. And I thought that was a pretty good trick to pull. And then the characters and just the ideas, and as I was rereading this, I was thinking, okay, I've got all my other Brandon Sanderson books here that I've read since. I've read all of these, like the Stormlight Archives, all the Mistborn novels. I got a bunch of the Brandon Sanderson books here. And I do know, like Warbreaker, I've got them all. And I'm like, as I'm rereading this, I'm like, I think that I enjoyed all of these more than this one. In retrospect, all of these, like, that I've given every single Stormlight Archive. If you've seen my channel and my review of I've given these 10 out of 10s. These are like genius level, brilliant, classic fantasy. These Stormlight Archives books are going to go down as just some of the greatest fantasy books ever written. Same with Mistborn. And this, whilst good, I think lays the groundwork for the better stuff that came later. Because this, like I said, so many big ideas in it. So, and you can see where Brandon Sanderson, just reading this book here, you can see where Brandon Sanderson kind of sort of evolved into even bigger ideas and even bigger landscapes, and novels that take big ideas and place them in big worlds where we're just across the world rather than just focused into one city. Anyway, as I was rereading this, I usually take notes as I'm reading for the channel, and I'm just like, this, like I said, this book has got so many ideas in it, I'm not going to be able to keep them straight in my notes. So I rarely do this, but I thought I'm just going to read the jacket copy because it describes the book better than my notes and me just sort of trying to would do. Elantris, gigantic, beautifully, I can't even get this right. Can't even read it correctly. Let me start over. Elantris, gigantic, beautiful, literally radiant, filled with benevolent beings who used their powerful magical abilities to benefit all people of Arelon. Yet each of these godlike beings had been an ordinary person until touched by the mysterious transforming power of the Shoad. Then, 10 years ago, without warning, the magic failed. Elantrians became wizened, feeble, leper-like creatures, and Elantris itself dark, filthy, and crumbling. The Shoad became a curse. Okay, I'll stop right there because, yeah, when you're reading this book, you do get a sense of this crumbling, decaying city where everything is just sort of like horrid, wretched. The living conditions are just grungy. I do like the way that Brandon Sanderson sets that up, and the descriptions that he gives of this city as you travel through it are great. It's just kind of like this crumbling, steampunk-like Victorian civilization that's just gone to shit. And he does a magnificent job of conveying that. And the characters that come out of that sort of, come out of this, decaying fog to talk to our main characters is pretty cool. Anyway, Arelon's new capital city, K, crouches in the shadows of Elantris, which its people do its best to ignore. Princess Serene of Toad, I'm just going to say Toad. Princess Serene of Toad has come to K for a marriage of state with Crown Prince Wherein, hoping, based on their correspondence, also to find love. She finds instead that Wherein has died, and she is considered his widow. Both Toad and Arelon are under threat as the last remaining holdouts against the imperial ambitions of the ruthless religious fanatics of the Fordell. Serene decides to make the best of a sad situation and uses her position to oppose the machinations of Hrathan, a Fordell high priest who has come to convert Arelon and claim it for his emperor and his god. But neither Serene nor Hrathan suspects the truth about Prince Whereин's disappearance. When taken by the same strange malady that struck the fallen gods of Elantris, Wherein has secretly imprisoned within the Dark City. His struggle to create a society for the wretches trapped there begins a series of events that will bring hope to Arelon and perhaps even reveal the secret of Elantris itself. So we've got this mysterious city full of decaying, dying people. They used to be gods. It's a pretty good adventure, slow-paced, moves a little slower than his Mistborn for sure, but really immersive in its atmosphere and its characterizations. I liked when our main character sort of got thrust into the city, sort of this horrific idea that he's just, an outcast and he has to make the best of it in this grim world. Interesting stuff. Pretty ambitious for a first novel. I give this a solid 8 out of 10. Just for its sheer ambition and scope and idea creation. It's unlike anything in the fantasy genre you'll read. It's unlike a lot of the Brandon Sanderson's other things, but in the same time very similar. I don't even know if that makes sense. But anyway, that's my review of Elantris. Second time reading it, probably had about the same impression the first time. Second time, same impression. idea after idea after idea, just pretty cool.